You know what time it is. Banners are looking as stacked as ever this time around, so I'm here to help you decide who to spend your precious Primogems on. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. A quick note before we begin, this video serves as a nice TLDR of who you should consider pulling for. I'll be making individual videos on each character that's coming up to evaluate their individual pros and cons more in depth, which will help you better decide whether you want them or not. Okay, cool, let's go. The Exalted Pyro Archon. She's going to be the absolute powerhouse of this patch. She's been hyped up for so long now, and her power level certainly matches that level of hype. You can either play her as an on-fielder or off-fielder, much like the Raiden Shogun. Mavuika's on-field playstyle leans heavily into her being a strong pyro main DPS, which is very befitting of the almighty goddess of war. Her numbers will be nutty and you most certainly won't be disappointed. She's raising the pyro damage ceiling, which means that she will become the new pyro unit that is capable of dealing the highest amount of pyro damage in the game. A new high bar to reach essentially. However, I doubt that any future pyro DPS will be able to reach these crazy heights, at least not for a long time, because holy smokes, Hoyo really wanted her to do damage. So if a strong pyro damage dealer is what you're looking for, then Mavuika's an excellent choice to make. Her off-field playstyle will be splendid for all Lan teams. She has this mechanic called Fighting Spirit, which replaces her need for energy recharge. Essentially, when your characters either do normal attacks or consume Night Soul, she will regain Fighting Spirit, which will then eventually proc her burst. She's able to increase the damage that your on-field character deals through Fighting Spirit-based mechanics. This all lends her to being the prime pyro support for all Lan teams as you know them. Muolani, Kenichi Nahao, Chaska, you name it, she'll work great there. With a C0 Chaska, keep in mind that you will likely have to deal for A4 Bullet being RNG in order to play teams such as Bennett, Farina, and Mavuika. That's fine, those will still be Chaska's best installed team options. It's essentially the same as ignoring a stack of Draconic Glories in favor of using Lady Farina with a C0 Nouvelette. It's still better than trying to build around the passive. She won't be completely restricted to Lan teams, as characters such as Cloriander are able to deal a ton of quickfire normal attacks. She is amazing overload teams. Mavuika is Pyro, match made in Celestia. I would like to add, if you have Shilonen, then you can flex Mavuika pretty much everywhere. The DJ Cat consumes 90 Night Soul every time she completes her 2 kicks, assuming that you're playing support Lonen. And because her flexibility is equal to Kazuha's, you can play those two together as a ridiculously strong team core. Citlali, who will also be coming out this patch, will work splendidly with Mavuika too. You'll be able to run some ridiculously powerful forward melt setups when using those two in the same team. Mavuika's main drawback is just that it's pretty disappointing that there wasn't more emphasis on her off-field abilities. I myself do wish that they focused a little more on that. She's still buffing my Kenichi, so I'm happy enough, but more would have been neat. That and the fact that another pyro DPS is kind of redundant. Sure, she's the Archon of War, and she does indeed embody the spirit of the pyro element, but we already have Arlecchino and Lenny, even Gaming. We seriously did not need more pyro damage dealers. Sure, Mavuika's the best, but if you already have the Magician or his dad, then the pyro Archon might end up feeling somewhat redundant. I'll be dropping her into S tier when it comes to the value rankings for this patch. Easily the prime choice to make this time around. Now we gotta talk about the almighty Granny Citlali. She has hyped herself up as being one of the strongest members of her tribe, and I can see why, because she is a pretty good unit. And that is pretty shocking considering that she's cryo. Finally, Hoyoverse got off of their butts and decided to make a good cryo unit. Anyways, let's delve into why that is. The main thing that she does that is so good is that she enables forward melt teams. So she's going to reduce the pyro and hydro res of enemies by 20% each respectively. This makes her quite the offensively equipped shielder. Now here's the other thing, she's able to hold 4-piece Cinder City, so she's able to offer you 40% damage bonus along with a 20% res shred to both Pyro and Hydro. That is pretty good. All of that on top of being able to offer shielding. And here's the thing, it's not just Mavuika that she's going to be able to work well with. However, that synergy is going to end up breaking the game, mark my words. She'll be able to work with the other pyro DPSs that we currently have in the game. For example, now we'll be getting forward melt Father, we'll be getting forward melt Linny, and the nice thing about Linny is that you'll be able to play a team of Linny, Farina, Bennett, his usual best installed vape team, with a shielder without sacrificing as much damage as you would with using Zhongli. Because while they may share the same amount of res shred, they do not share the ability to use 4-piece Cinder City. That's a Citlali thing, my guy. She can also act as a wonderful Shilonen replacement, because think about it, Shilonen with a crown skill can provide you with up to 36% res shred, and using Cinder City, 40% damage bonus. You can get even more if you use Peak Patrol Song, but if you give Citlali her own signature weapon, then she actually gives more damage bonus than the DJ Cat. So in Mr. Settle Down teams, if you don't want to use Shilonen, you can just slap Granny Citlali there instead and get the job done just fine because she has the Hydro Res Shred. Another nice thing that I like about this character is that she's not entirely restrictive. What I mean by this is that you don't have to play her with other Not-Long characters or with a specific reaction. Now, hear me out. With Mavuika, you really want to play her with either Not-Long characters or characters that can do normal attacks. Then with Autoron, you really want to play him with either taser teams or characters that can do Night Soul bursts. Granny Citlali does not face such issues. Pyro and Hydro as a restriction is much broader. And it's not even that much of a restriction. Her shield is gonna work in any team either way, and you can still proc 4-piece Intercity in any team either way. It's just the Red Shred that you'd be missing out on then. So if you're looking for a Not-Long unit that doesn't have to play in Not-Long teams, then this crazy granny might be the right one for you. I will say that the most disappointing thing about Citlali is that she doesn't actually do anything for the old crowd DPSs themselves. This was a massive missed opportunity, because Melt Ganyu has been a team since the dawn of time. Adding a Melt-centric shielder for her would have been absolutely excellent, and while Riesli teams are already quite well established, they're already quite strong, whoever said that he couldn't get a nice upgrade? Easily the worst thing about Granny Citlali, instead of breaking all of our legs like she does with her grandson, she broke all of us cryo lovers' hearts, but not entirely since, hey, she's still a good cryo unit at the end of the day. I'll be plopping her into A tier when it comes to the value rankings for this patch. Definitely not a necessity, but a very good unit for sure. Then we move on to the one that is everlasting as the moon. Father has at last returned with the milk, and is she still any good? Well, as you know, she has been making absolute waves in the meta ever since her release. She has checked literally every single box on the list of what you need in order to be a top tier S tier meta unit. Now here's the thing, it's a little unfortunate that a rerun is coming right after Mavuika's release, who's going to become the new strongest power DPS, but let's take a moment to appreciate how good Arla is before we delve into that. Father does damage, and a whole lot of it, not to mention how easy she is to play. Here's the thing, Lenny in Vape is able to actually reach her numbers at C0R1, but since Lenny can feel somewhat clunky to play, especially considering how hard-hitting the bosses are in the Abyss this time around, Arlecchino can feel way more accessible. Anybody can access her top echelon of damage. She is just normal attack spam, and that is very appealing to a whole lot of players. And her damage is absolutely worthy of being called top tier. Have you seen those vaporized numbers? It's insane. She's stupidly flexible too. Okay, yes, Vape is gonna be her best in slot team, but you can play her in so many other areas effectively. Mono Pyro? Yep. Overload? Yep. Burning? Yep. You name it, she can probably use it. Not to mention how Granny Citlali is going to be giving Father another new team option in Forward Melt. So I'm 99% sure that if you've been playing this game for a hot minute, you will have a viable Father team on hand. Her attacks have a very wide AoE, she's good in AoE and single target content alike, there is just so much good to her. Yes, she can't be healed, and that is a bit awkward when used with Farina. However, that doesn't mean that you absolutely cannot use them together, because if your Lady Farina is C2+, then the buffing she provides to Arla will make her damage so high that you can literally just ignore this anti-synergy. She's literally going to clear the Abyss floor before it becomes a problem for you. She's also super beginner friendly in terms of build setups. She's able to use White Tassel very effectively, and if you don't have a Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy set yet, then you can always use those old Gladiator pieces that you've got lying around. It's incredibly easy to form a build on her. She has been the best pyro DPS in the game ever since she came out. Now to address the big motorcycle in the room, what is Arlecchino gonna do now that the honorary son of Caledon is joining the game? Well, let me tell you. Here's the thing, Lenny came out in 4.0 and he became the strongest pyro DPS. Farina came out, made him ridiculously stronger. He was already good, then he became even better. You'd think that his dad would have totally kicked him out of the meta, but no. You know, there's only so high you can go with pyro numbers at the end of the day. It's not like the gap was so large that there was absolutely never any reason to use Lenny again. After all, he actually ended up doing a bit better in boss scenarios sometimes. Just because Arlecchino came out didn't mean that Lenny died. He was still extremely competent for the entirety of the Fontaine meta and continues to be an S tier DPS to this day. The same is going to happen between Arlecchino and Mavuika. While the Pyro Archon is obviously going to be better than her, that doesn't mean that your Arla is suddenly dead. So don't worry, your Arla will still be good if you already have her and are intending to pull constellations for her. Oh, and that's another thing, Arlecchino's constellations. To say they're good would be a bit of an understatement. Yes, a Mavuika with a similar level of investment will be stronger than her. However, let's not undersell Father's constellations here. Father's constellations have been some of the best in the game ever since she came out. Now yes, the Pyro Archon's constellations, if you get those instead of Arla's, she will end up doing more DPS, but I'm just saying now that Arla is still very much worth your high investment if you've been saving all this time for more of her constellations. Also, remember, Father is far more flexible because she doesn't need not long characters in her teams. Father will be heading to the bottom of S tier when it comes to the value rankings for this patch. It's a shame that she's getting power crept the moment that her first rerun was announced, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. She'll still be a good unit at the end of the day. Then for Clorox, Bleach, Cloriander, this D&D player packs quite the punch. So here's the thing, I actually think that she's the best Electro DPS in the game. Her numbers are really good, her playstyle is super smooth, and if you invest well into her, you're going to wipe the Abyss down. She's the best in slot aggravate DPS option to this day because she solves any pre-existing issues that the team archetype had. For example, lack of consistent self-sustain, Cloriander sustains herself, so you don't have to worry about using Nahida on Prototype Amber, and you can use her on a higher damaging option instead. She's the strongest Electro DPS in general, out-damaging all of her units that share her element. This isn't even mentioning the fact that she has super effective flexibility. Every Cloriander team is a good one. Overload, for instance, holy heck. Now that is a good team. You've also got the likes of Clorox Hypercarry, which is a stupidly strong team for her. Even her freaking meme teams, such as the physical Chi-Chi one, are capable of clearing the Abyss decently. Once again, Bond of Life mechanics make her Farina synergy awkward, but you can still make it work in taser teams and such. Her short uptime window makes her an excellent Kujo Sara user, as the big crit damage buff fits perfectly within Cloriander's big DPS window. She's also one of the few units who can fully utilize all of Yunjin's stacks, because that's how fast she normal attacks. She zooms those things out. So she's able to take advantage of quite a wide array of supports. There's quite a big chance that you'll be able to form a competent Cloriander team once you get her. This isn't even mentioning how free-to-play friendly she is, because you can easily get good damage out of her when crafting her a Finale of the Deep. She's also build flexible like Arla, but a bit less so, because while Harmonic Whimsy is her absolute best in slot for damage, you can still get by on a 4-piece Thundering Fury set, especially in aggravate teams. Harmonic is better, farm for it, but I will say that you can get by on this. She's super easy to pilot as well, like this character is foolproof. You do 3 normal attacks, use her skill, 3 normal attacks, use her skill, rinse and repeat, occasionally do your burst, then just do the whole thing again. It's easy to use her, so she's very accessible. There's also plenty of directly free substitutes for teammates. Don't have Kazuha? Well, Lan Yan's gonna be free from this year's Lantern Rite, or you can just use Lynette. Don't have Nahida? You can just use DMC or even Kirara if you were around for the 4.8 event. When it comes to her main flaw, here's the thing. She's absolutely the best Electro DPS, but that doesn't mean that she's the best DPS. She's not S tier. Now, she's still a pretty good A tier. She's a great DPS, don't get me wrong. I think she is a very powerful unit, but she's not exactly S tier, and we have so many good DPSs coming out these days. We're really playing DPS Impact this patch, with 3 of them being on banners, and 2 of them are just better than her. If you want a main DPS, I would much rather recommend Mavuika or Arlecchino. This isn't even touching on the crazy hydros, such as Settle Down and Mualani. And considering the current Notlon bias that's going on in the Abyss, yeah, I think I would rather just save for some Notlon DPSs. Now, she is still the very best Electro DPS, and in my personal opinion, bit of a hot take, is the best Electro character, so you will get all of that out of her. Cloriander will be slapped right into A tier for the value rankings of this patch. Being the best Electro DPS is pretty hot stuff. However, since we have so many DPSs coming out this patch, DPS Impact if you will, I'd say Arla and Mavuika would be more worth your time. As for sweet Lan Yan, she'll be able to be claimed from Lantern Rite for free this year down at C0. So what does she do and is she any good? Well, she's a bit of an everyman character. 4-piece VV, shielding, grouping, and she does all of those things pretty well, so you can slot her in pretty much anywhere. She has great versatility, she's really good considering that she's a 4-star, and at C2+, she is arguably the strongest shield in the game. Yes, even above Zhongli, even above Citlali, but to be fair, Citlali's shield isn't that strong anyway. Hoyo is filling up a new niche with her because she's an Animo Shielder. We've never gotten one of those before, and if you're looking for a more defensive Animo option but you don't want to totally miss out on grouping in 4VV, then Lan Yan's actually going to be a very convenient choice for you. She'll be replacing Lynette as the best in slot free-to-play animal for Aggravate, because her shielding will allow Nahida to run an offensive weapon instead of prototype Amber. She will generally be very good for aggro teams, even with Cloriander, thanks to providing her ample interruption resistance. Her main flaw? Simple. Other animos are better. You can only have so many 4VV holding animos, and what she does outside of shielding isn't all that unique. Characters like Lan Yan are able to sustain their teams while providing 4VV, while providing some buffs. You get the idea. She'll be fantastic on your account if you specifically want those shielding qualities, but otherwise, not anything too special. Lan Yan is gonna be a free claimable from Lantern Rite anyways, but I suppose there's pulling for copies. What do you know, there's no B tier units this patch value-wise. You quite literally cannot go wrong this time around. For those of you who aren't yet in the know, I've recently opened up a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. These banners, whoo boy, they're really not holding anything back, are they? I'm a bit disappointed in the fact that Arla's being power crept so soon. Sure, it's nowhere near as bad as the case in Honkai Star Rail is, but the saltiness still remains. Mavuika will indeed be S tier upon release, so I'm looking forward to seeing her break the game. Hoyo did a good job at making Citlali and Lan Yan interesting, so that there's good reason to be hyped for these two as well. Definitely a wild patch to look forward to. Let me know about your thoughts on this lot down below in the comments. Will you be pulling for anybody and why? Hopefully this video was able to tell you who'd get you the best bang for your Primogem in Genshin version 5.3. This has been Juice, signing out. And let's be real, a ton of people are still gonna be picking up Arla because of that immaculate drip.